It's time now for the KC Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's KC Ingram.
Tired of lines at the boat launch, sun damage, or not using your boat because of the hassle? Call Meridian Marina and Yacht Club because we do all the work so you can enjoy your boating lifestyle. We store your boat inside. Launch it with a wash with just 30 minutes notice and rinse it down before putting it back. Need new electronics? Service? Detailing? Bottom paint? No problem. Our experienced certified techs will make sure your boat is in tip-top shape and ready to head to the sandbar, fishing, or the Bahamas. Call us up at 772-221-8198. That's 221-8198, or visit us online at meridianmarina.com. Just want to remind everybody, I send out a weekly email blast letting you know who the special guest will be on the show, and you can sign up easily for that at my website, the kcingramshow.com. So on the line tonight, we have from Tallahassee, Representative Toby Overdorf. How are you doing tonight, Toby?
Oh, I'm great, Casey. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I sincerely appreciate it.
Oh, we are very excited to have you on the show. I know there's been a lot going on in Tallahassee already, even though the session doesn't start till January. And I was just thinking on my way in that last year was your first session as a state representative. And this year, you also had another first where you became the person to introduce the very first bill of the session. So that's very exciting.
It is. It's very nice that the leadership had confidence in me to be able to do that and to really kick off the session.
It really did. So we're excited to hear what all is going on in Tallahassee, Toby. It's amazing that so much work happens before the start of session. So can you kind of go over some of the issues that you're working on?
Sure, absolutely. So right now we're kind of working through there's been a fair amount of budgetary requests that have come from the governor, and we're trying to understand how we can fit all of those various requests into a budget that by our Constitution and state law, we have to have a balanced budget. So we're in the process of understanding what we can do and how we can do that, and yet adhere to the governor's requests. So, and many of those requests, of course, are going to impact our area, whether it would be through the DEP or with education and looking at paying our teachers even more. All these different requests are coming forward. So that's a fair amount of budgetary requests, but we're also now in the process of really understanding what it is we're going to be working on this year. And this can be everything from, again, education to the environment to various business items to a variety of other issues with healthcare. So we're just getting the flavor now. And also, of course, right now on the Senate side is the hearings on Scott Israel and whether the Senate will, in fact, either reinstate him or stick with the governor's recommendation to remove him from office.
Well, there certainly is a lot going on here before session. And let's talk a little bit about some of the environmental bills. I saw that there's a House Bill 153. It's an Indian River Lagoon State Matching Grant Program, and you're helping to sponsor that. First year appropriation of $50 million and could pay for $100 million in sewage upgrades in the 5-county area. Can you tell us a little bit more about that bill?
Oh, certainly. Proud to work with Chairman Randy Fine on this bill, and it really addresses the potential for spillage within the Indian River Lagoon and making sure that the municipalities are actually addressing the concerns associated with the infrastructure that actually is failing in many cases. So what this bill does is looks at not only septic to sewer conversions, but also what's happening afterwards. And how those sewer lines are actually getting the material to the plant, other areas there. And then we're also looking at how we can fund potentially the actual conversions and the expansion of sewage plants and putting in new lines for the areas that are going to be affected by this. And all of these things are then only going to go towards keeping the phosphorus and nitrogen and all the other items that that we found to be very harmful to the environment and keeping them out of the lagoon. The Florida Keys made an incredible decision many years ago to go ahead and remove the septic tanks from all across the various islands there, and they have seen a tremendous impact as a result with their waterways around there, and the lowering of the phosphorus and nitrogen output has absolutely shown benefits to the reef system surrounding the Florida Keys, and so we believe that that will be a huge benefit to the Indian River Lagoon.
Oh, it sounds like it. That's very exciting research and proven research if they've already converted over and had that type of positive response. And certainly, Representative Overdorf, it always comes down to the cost, especially conversion to the homeowner. And I'm sure that's a big issue for you all to tackle in Tallahassee.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, the last thing that we want to do, or I personally want to do, is provide an unfunded mandate of what we can or we're supposed to be doing here. But the other side of that is we also have to look at what is good for the environment and what is good for Florida as a whole. And sometimes we do have to realize that there's a price tag for restoring the environment and for ensuring that our children and our children's children are going to, in fact, have a clean environment here in Florida. So we're certainly trying to be as fiscally conservative as we possibly can and also respect private property rights at the same time.
Certainly. Let me ask you a little bit about the Hepatitis A update. I think that you recently attended. That's certainly something that is still ongoing. They never really did find the source of it here in Martin County. I guess it was probably multiple sources, but what is the latest update on that?
Great question. So thank you so much. I was Miss Harrell, Senator Harrell was actually had me sit in on her healthcare hearing today, and during that time, Surgeon General Rivkees, as well as the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, gave us an update on where we stand. And I'm sad to say that there have been 45 deaths, and actually 5 over the last month, due to this very preventable virus. And I think that what we really need to start focusing on, and what my only criticism of the reaction to this, is that we've really focused not necessarily on the non-quote-unquote at-risk population. We focused only at that at-risk population. And what that means, the at-risk population are those folks that are considered to be either homeless or IV drug users or have other similar risk factors. And we found that over 50% of those that have contracted this disease do not fit those categories. And so we have been putting pressure on the Department of Health to address those that are not within the quote-unquote at-risk category. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to see some of those items going forward and some of the ways that they're going to address this in the future. And the sooner the better for my sake.
Certainly. I want to talk about another bill that's very important here in Martin County, and that's House Bill 2175, the Martin County Fair Association Agriplex and Fairgrounds Bill. Can you tell us about that bill?
Sure. I was very honored to be able to carry that forward, and Speaker Pro Tem Magar has been working with me on that as well. And it gives us an opportunity to potentially gain some state funding to help with moving our fairgrounds. And as we all have known and loved, the fair has been in downtown Martin County, if you will, for many a year, and it's been a great opportunity there. But we're looking for a more permanent complex that would be serving us further west, and the fairgrounds could also double as a potential pet shelter and frankly a human shelter for hurricane evacuations. It could also serve as a year-round resource and a year-round opportunity to bring additional visitors to Indian Town and into Martin County. So what we're doing right now is finding some ways to potentially get this funded and have some opportunities to really expand the fair itself, expand the opportunities that are presented in that land there. And this gives us that opportunity now. So Senator Harrell has also been a great sponsor with that. And we, of course, have to bring it through both chambers, and hopefully we'll be successful in the end. I know money's tight, but I know any little dollar we can bring home would be great for that worthy cause.
It truly would. We've had Jay Spicer and Chester Fields on the show, and it's a very exciting complex that they would love to build, and it's much larger than the 12-acre facility they have now. So I know you've got your job cut out for you on this bill, because we're just Martin County, and everybody has a need in all of their districts. So we'll be following this and wish you all the luck, and thank you for bringing that up. We certainly support Jay.
Absolutely. And, and Jay's a great guest, and he's got a great radio voice as well. So.
Yes, he does. I agree. So you also worked a lot last session on human trafficking bills. Can you tell us, are you working on anything more this session, or let's go over what you were able to accomplish last session?
So last session, literally the very last bill that was voted on by the Florida House as well as the Florida Senate was House Bill 851. And while it didn't incorporate everything that I had brought forward previously, it did incorporate a lot. And it's a bill that brought forward required training for the Super Bowl coming up, which we have both in Miami this year, and then the following year we're going to be in Tampa. It brought forward some additional training and signage for everything from hotel workers and restaurant workers to massage parlors and different things like that, where we are able to educate staff, workers, and the public to be able to identify what does human trafficking look like. We've also created a direct support organization that will, in fact, be able to support our human trafficking statewide council and provide them with some monetary resources that allows them to really bring light to this modern day slavery that we're seeing. And I think it's important for all of us to really understand that we're not just talking about sex trafficking here, we're also talking about labor trafficking. And that Florida, unfortunately, right now is number 3 in the entire country, and in overall human trafficking. And we actually also have the 2 top cities in Miami and Orlando are the 2 number 1 cities throughout the nation that are leading in human trafficking, unfortunately. So obviously it's something that we're looking at hard. It has been a cause of mine for many a year. My wife was actually the first one to really bring it to my attention, and she worked very hard and has worked hard on it. So it's something that's very important to our family, and I know that Lynn Barletta and her crew have done such a great job in bringing it forward with Catch a Wave of Hope. But hopefully it's something that in my lifetime we will be able to end the scourge of human trafficking.
Oh, I agree completely. And it's a larger issue than most people realize. It truly is. Nurses Take Florida just commented. They said the state of Florida ensures nurses are trained to spot human trafficking. So in the hospitals, the nurses there are looking out for those signs.
And the nurses have been a great support throughout this whole process, and have added some things into the statewide council as well. So thank you for commenting.
Certainly. Let's talk about that teacher's pay as well, Toby. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. Certainly Governor DeSantis had just announced that he wants to increase the minimum salary for teachers here in Florida. So where is that standing right now? That's certainly an initiative of Governor DeSantis. Is there legislation going to the floor, or is it in committee?
It's, let me see, the Education Committee is actually meeting tomorrow, and I think that is one of the things that they're bringing up. I do not sit on the K through 12 or K through 12 appropriations, but Chair Latvala does, and he will be. I know that they are looking at that, bringing that forward. I think that there is a huge appetite here to increase teacher salaries, and it's a question of how do we pay for it and stay within our balanced budget. But I think that the teachers are so deserving, and I applaud the governor for being bold in his actions and really looking to support those that are really training our next generation. It's incredibly important to have good and qualified teachers, and those that frankly are being paid well.
Certainly, and I agree with you 100%. And of course, it always comes down to where do we find the money. So hopefully that is found, but I know there's a lot, a lot you have to deal with your budget up there. Representative Overdorf, what are your initiatives for this session?
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for asking. We've got a variety of different things that we're working on. We are working on an education bill that goes around the AP courses and provides for some additional funding for teachers associated with that. We're working on a jet fuel bill that came right out of the Stewart Municipal Airport, and working with Fairwind Air Charter over there that looks at ways that we can prevent some crashes that have the possibility of happening. We are working on a water quality bill right now that will deal with the best management practices and making sure that we're strengthening that program and doing it in such a way that it is good for the environment, and we're actually going to be able to potentially get the personnel to enforce the program as well. So those are all areas that are really part of our focus. We're working on another bill that will allow for the expansion of the entrepreneur program throughout our statewide university system. I've been a big proponent of job training and finding skills training and finding ways that, everybody deserves a great education, but not everybody wants to go or really needs to go to college in order to have a great job. And so the entrepreneurship program is one of those avenues that expands that opportunity. So those are some areas that we're really focused on. And then, things have a tendency to change around here. So we'll see what happens towards the end of session. But I am working as well with the Attorney General on a new human trafficking bill, and then also working with the Fish and Wildlife Commission on an endangered species issue that has plagued them for many years. So we're looking to really help them with that. I know there's, through committee, I'll probably be working on a septic bill and another septic sewer conversion bill. And so there's a whole bunch of different things there. And as you can see, Casey, we're a little busy in understanding all the different avenues and dynamics. And it's amazing the education that you go through when you come up here and arrive in Tallahassee. And I will never say that I'm an expert on anything by any means, but it's great to have really supportive staff up here and have some people around me that are a lot smarter than I that we can really rely on.
I can only imagine it's like drinking information, as they say, drinking water through a fire hose with all the information and things that come through up there.
Most certainly. Certainly.
Julie Griffin said, thank you so much for supporting teachers. What about point of source pollution? Do you see any legislation that would identify and help legislate point of source solutions so that, let's say pollution that's coming in from north of Lake Okeechobee is actually tested and stopped at the source?
So one of the initiatives that I'm working on are finding ways to hold more water north of Lake Okeechobee. The studies that we've seen have shown that the Orlando area is going to be out of water based on their current growth rate within 10 years. And their problem is really one of our solutions, in that if we're able to hold a lot more water north of the lake, and even within the beginning of the chain of lake systems around the city of Orlando, we will actually be able to lower the amount of water that's coming into the lake on a rapid basis. And therefore, obviously lowering the amount of overall potential discharges, potential pollution issues, and things like that. And, it's going to be a balance. We're going to have to really look at the irrigation needs and, frankly, the water supply needs associated with what's happening throughout the region there. I'm
glad that you are looking north of the lake. That is a huge issue. And wherever we can hold water, I say and store it instead of just discharging it. It's always a good thing.
Absolutely.
David Hafner, he said, Representative Overdorf, you're doing an amazing job. So another compliment to you here from your local constituents.
Well, thanks, David.
Of course. Well, there is a lot going on up there. And Representative Overdorf, of course, we're coming upon year 2020. So that means another election cycle is coming up that you're going to have to worry about as well. Mm-hmm. Are you doing anything that to prepare for that at this point?
Well, we're out there raising money. We, of course, have filed for office again. We have to run every 2 years here. I'm prayerful that the folks in Martin and St. Lucie will allow me to come back and represent them again up here, and hoping that we're doing a good enough job that they'll allow me to do that, and we'll see what happens from there. It's certainly an election process, and we're fundraising. We are looking for getting new petitions assigned, and so we have to run every 2 years, and so that's what we're doing.
Keeps you very busy for certain. So,
yes, it does.
So last year there was a couple thousand bills filed. Can you tell us this year how many been filed so far? And you've mentioned some of the bills that you're involved with. Are there any other bills out there that you might share with us that you have your eye on, or you feel like maybe your constituents should?
So I think we're around bill number 402 now, and we're sitting at, and then obviously increasing. I would expect that we'll get in the neighborhood of 2,000 bills that are going to be filed again this year. Of that, I would expect that we'll probably have under 200 that are actually in fact heard and or passed by the House. Last year was a record low year for the amount of legislation that was actually passed, and I would expect that to happen again. As far as the other legislation that's out there, I'm most hopeful to be a part of some water legislation, some of our environmental legislation. I think those are areas that I'm really focused on. There's some building issues that I also would like to be a part of. There is a couple of healthcare bills that we're a part of. There's some entrepreneurship, and then there are some disability bills that are for funding and different things like that I'm also looking at. So we're looking at all of those.
There's a lot. So if constituents have a bill or an idea for a bill, is it too late for them to bring that to you, or is that still information or ideas that can come in?
Ideas are always welcome if they'd like to bring them forward. So what would happen, a lot of times what happens is we have our idea of what we're going to be running and how we're going to be running those. We then say, all right, we're going to go ahead and file these bills and that bills. All of a sudden somebody on a committee says, you know what, we're going to take your bill and combine it into our committee bill. And so all of a sudden your bill is sucked up, and now you may have another bill slot that's available. We all have 6 bill slots. So sometimes the late ideas get brought in, and we're able to go ahead and process that. We are still getting some folks that are presenting us with bill options and things like that. But as of November 15th, I believe it is, we have to have all of our bills into drafting by that time.
Wow, that's coming right up. Well, Representative Overdorf, it really is. We certainly appreciate you taking the time here today, and you've given us some great updates. And we're going to be following some of these bills this session. I know it's going to be a busy time, but important work always. And
I appreciate it, Casey. And anything we can do to bring some light to some of this stuff, and if there's any opportunities you'd like to talk in the future, or any of the listeners out there, we're always open. And the city of Stuart has been very gracious. We're going to open up our new district office in late December. We're right downtown.
That is wonderful. We look forward to that, and absolutely would love to have you on during session and have some in-session updates.
Sounds great. Love to do it.
Thank you, Toby. Have a good one. Appreciate you calling.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye now. All right, folks. And just a reminder, you can sign up for the weekly email blast at the KCIngramShow.com, and you are able to be notified ahead of time who that special guest is in the studio. Right now, I have the News Minute for Tuesday, October 22nd. A kink has been thrown in the plans for the Martin County Fair Association to sign a lease with Martin County to move the fair from its current Dixie Highway location in Stuart to a 102-acre parcel of land on Citrus Boulevard across from Timer Powers Park near Indiantown. The town of Jupiter Island has challenged the recent amendment to Martin County's Comprehensive Growth Management Plan that would allow that move. The amendment would give the fair, which would be outside of Martin County's Urban Service District, permission to get its water and sewer from outside Martin County's urban service boundary. In this case, the water and sewer lines were supposed to come from the Indiantown Company. Jupiter Island, however, says that they hold the exclusive rights to provide water and sewer services for all of western Martin County in the unincorporated areas. They even investigated the possibility of purchasing the Indiantown Company to upgrade the plant to serve Indiantown. The Indiantown Village Council, however, passed a resolution at its October 10 meeting that said essentially, thanks but no thanks. They intend to pursue its purchase themselves in order to have exclusive control of their development. No hearing date has yet been set in Jupiter Island's lawsuit against Martin County. This News Minute is brought to you to our WSTU 1450 radio audience by Martin County Currents, your alternative source to local news.